to What's Your Story? I'm your host, Dr. Lieslotte Schuster, and I'm very excited to be introducing you to my guests. I have Dr. Robert Schramm and his life partner, who also happens to be my mother, Jean Ryersbach. And Rob has actually written 4 books. He's on his 5th book, and his 4th book is all about travels. And my mom and Rob travel a lot together, but we're going to find out a little bit more about them and the books that Rob has written. So Robert, could you tell us a little bit about you, a little bit of history about you, and then also about your books?
Well, I recently turned 64, still living happily ever after with my partner Jean, and I'm the executive director of a nonprofit agency in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, BARC Developmental Services. We serve folks with intellectual disabilities and autism, and I'm proud to say I've been happily employed there for 33 years. So I started planning for my retirement, which I don't have any exact date in mind yet, about 10 years ago, and knew that if I didn't have things to do other than work, I'd have a hard time filling up the 40 hours a day, or 40 to 60 hours, not a day, 40 to 60 hours a week that I work. So I started writing, and my initial writing was quite boring because I was so accustomed to business writing and writing for work. And I was too fixated on getting facts and getting things right, so it didn't flow well. But I started with my autobiography, which was the boring stuff, trying to get the facts. And then when Jean and I started traveling, I started to write a daily log, a daily journal of our experiences. And then it started to flow. So that was really the beginning of my writing, even though it didn't come out until my 4th book.
So your first book is called Maximize
Life by Living for Peace, Harmony, and Joy.
Now, what was this first book about? What's the premise of it?
The first book is about my journey and everyone's journey to try to get the most out of life while we're still alive, and to try to make each day valuable and important and worth living. And so it was my journey through depression and back up into the light of the day, and I describe it all in there, and I have over 150 chapters. They're only 2-page chapters, which is the issue, and then my journey in that issue, and then space for the reader to journal their journeys on that particular issue.
So it's very interactive.
Yes, very interactive.
And then you have a second book called Oh My God, It Is All the Same.
Right.
So what sounds like that's like the next step. Here you're being interactive, talking about joy, and what is the second book about for you and for the reader?
The second book is I went back into my research past and started reading and researching all about the various religions and cultures of our world that Jean and I have seen firsthand, both in our travels and that I've seen in my spiritual quest. And so from my experience and from all of the reference materials, I put together a book that is my conclusion, which is, oh my God, it's all the same. We just we couch it in different words and different rituals, whether you're a Catholic, a Presbyterian, a Hindu, a Buddhist, or a Jew. The bottom line to what we're all after is the same.
Mm-hmm. And then you have a third book, Life is But a Dream. So how did that come?
Now this is an interesting one.
Okay.
One evening one night, about 3 in the morning, I was getting up for my ritual in the bathroom, and I came back, and there was my little audio recorder on the nightstand, and and I laid down, I realized that I just had a dream, and I remembered it because I was still very groggy. So it's only pressing one little button, you know, the marvel of technology today, and I recorded the dream in my sleepy fugue state. And then I listened to it the next day, and I liked it. So 100 and almost 200 dreams later,
200 dreams, okay.
I downloaded them to the computer and then spent God knows how many hours transcribing them and then interpreting them in terms of what they mean, in terms of who I am. And then finally, hundreds of more hours writing a book about dreams in general and my dreams in particular.
So now let's talk about the travel book called The Musings of an Inveterate Traveler. And why don't you give us a little bit of information, because I believe that with the travels you have them in categories.
Categories essentially are airports and airport transfers and parking, and the stories when you travel a lot are enormous about all the snafus and issues you run into. And, you know, looking back, it's humorous, it's funny. It's not fun when you're delayed for hours and hours at a time, but it's fun to reminisce about it. And then I write on accommodations and dining, and we've been in everything from a jungle bed with mosquito netting to luxury hotels, and the dining has been everything from awful to world-class wonderful.
I'm always encouraging people to go for their dreams. That's one of the reasons that I have this show. So I hope that anybody who's watched this has been inspired by their travels, by his writing his books, and I want to thank both of you for sharing with me and sharing with everybody else.
Let's kiss each side of her cheek.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Lilo.
Thank you. So remember, always go for your dreams. And until next time, I'm your host, Dr. Lisa Schuster, for What's Your Story?